Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate. Today, we are going to be discussing multiple episodes of severe weather leading up to a severe weather outbreak that will occur in the mid part of this week. So if you guys are new to my channel, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. That would be greatly appreciated. I appreciate all the support. And let's get straight into the video. Well, actually, before we get straight into the video, I do have timestamps set in place so that if you see your area within the next couple of slides, you guys can go to that specific time frame, because I feel like people should be able to pick and choose and not have to sit through an entire video for information that may not be subjected to them. So if you guys have a specific, if you're in a specific area here, either for today, Monday, May 24th, whether you're in this dark green or yellow, you should probably stay tuned here and not skip ahead. We also have this day 2 outlook here, the dark green here. If you live in any of these dark greens, as well as areas in eastern Oklahoma, northwestern or even western parts of Arkansas and southwestern parts of Missouri, I highly advise you all to pay attention to that as well. And then if you live anywhere within the dark green, yellows, or areas in Ontario and Quebec, especially near areas like Ottawa, Montreal, and the city of Quebec, I would definitely pay attention to this as well. Now, before we completely get started, a lot of people probably are wondering as to what's happening with Tropical Storm Anna. Well, as of last night, the last advisory has been issued on Tropical Storm Anna. It has now become Post-Tropical Cyclone Anna, and that's mainly because it's starting to head into more and more unfavorable conditions. It's heading into lower sea surface temperatures, and a lot more unfavorable wind shear with some extra dry air. Not as much dry air, but it's a lot of the thermodynamics to where you have lower sea surface temperatures, lower temperatures in general. So it's not exactly all too favorable for hurricanes or even tropical storms. So that's the reason why the National Hurricane Center has issued the last advisory for Anna. So we won't have to talk about that for a while, but it's really interesting that this season has started early. And could that mean something for the future for tropical weather? We will have to see as this continues to unfold on our channel. Now let's talk about the day 1 outlook here. Monday, May 24th, 2021. Massive marginal, this giant dark green risk here. 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale extends from the Midwest all the way down to the southern plains. You also have a little marginal here in the mid-Atlantic for portions of the Appalachians down towards the central portions of Virginia. So if you live within these areas, I would highly advise that you watch out for severe weather. You also have the 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here, the slight risk, or this yellow blob here. That is a higher risk for severe weather and the greater probability of seeing severe weather within your general area. Hail outlook here. You have your 5%, which is indicated in brown. You have your 15%, which is indicated in yellow. So whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 1-inch size hail within a 25-mile radius. You also have your wind outlook here. Your 5% indicates, small chance, 15, bigger chance, but still not a huge chance. Whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 58-mile-per-hour wind gusts within a 25-mile radius as well. You also have a 5% here. That is the reason why there is a marginal risk for the mid-Atlantic. So definitely something to consider as that continues to move on through. And if you live within these general areas, highly advise getting into a sturdy structure. You also have your tornado risk, and this is a small chance for tornadoes, but it is an expansive one. So if you live here in Nebraska, all the way down to Kansas and even the northern panhandle of Texas, you do have a 2% chance for tornadoes indicated within this green blob. So definitely something to consider as this moves on through. Now, if we take a look at the timings of this, first things first, if you want to take a look at the timing specifically, look off to the top right-hand corner. You'll be able to have all the information you may need. I think you guys are starting to see a trend here. But a lot of scattered convection here already ongoing in northern portions of Texas as well as Oklahoma. And that'll continue to be like that throughout most of the day until storms do begin to try and form at around 2 to 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time here. places of Nebraska down into Kansas. You also have some storms here towards Duluth, south of Duluth, into places of Wisconsin. Even the Twin Cities could join the fray as well. And so if you guys live within this general area, you guys should definitely monitor the chance for some severe weather to develop, especially towards the latter stages of the evening, where even New Mexico and Texas even start to join. Places like Lubbock and Amarillo could potentially get into some severe weather with some spotty hail. And so all the more things to consider as severe weather does unfold later on this evening. Dew points here for the most part. This indicates the amount of moisture in the atmosphere. So these yellows indicate 60-degree dew points and above. You want that for severe weather typically. And so that is, you got some pretty good dew points here for the most part. Even some of these oranges here indicate upper 60s into some of the 70s here towards places near and along the coast. We also have some areas here near the Twin Cities that actually have dew points in upwards of the upper 60s, which is pretty good. So severe weather is possible within that general area. The one thing that I do want to point out here is we have dew points here in New Mexico that are extraordinarily dry. We have it in the negatives, negative degree dew points here. And so a big fire risk is possible for some of these areas. And if you live over here, I would definitely continue to pay attention to your emergency alert system. If there is a wildfire there and they do issue evacuations, then please heed those warnings. We also have an indicator which can tell us how much energy is in the atmosphere for thunderstorms to either form or sustain. And that is convective available potential energy, or CAPE. And so the more CAPE you have, the stronger amounts, the more CAPE you have, the stronger the thunderstorms typically are. And so how we measure that is warm air rising and cold air sinking. More displacement between the two equals more energy. Now, anything above 2,000 joules per kilogram typically is favorable for severe weather, or big time severe weather, more or less. So strong storms. And anywhere in these yellows, if you take a look at the color scale down towards the bottom of your screen, anywhere within the yellows is typically where you can find severe weather. So you have some up here in the Midwest. You also have some here in the plains. And so it's definitely something to consider as severe weather is expected tonight within some of these areas, with the amount of energy in some of these, in some of the general vicinity, how you can attribute that to what type of severe weather you're going to get. So spotty hail is definitely possible. Thunderstorms in general are possible, even if there isn't any wind shear, because wind shear helps out with the gusty winds and even the tornadoes as well. But as of right now, we have the energy for thunderstorms to form, and it's just a question of whether or not they do form in general. Wind shear here, we're going to take a look at the low-level jet, 850 millibar winds, or winds above ground level, or 1 kilometer above ground level, I should say. We have a lot of southerly, so winds coming from the south here, across Oklahoma and even into Kansas. And so that typically when you have a lot of southerlies like this, this could indicate the potential for something to be tornadic out in front of it. Not always, but some instances. You also have winds coming from the southwest, so southwesterlies here across portions of Twin Cities, even to the south and east of the Twin Cities area. That is more or less favorable for wind risks here, straight line wind damage, and that's the reason why there was not a 2% chance for tornadoes within that general area. And so now what we're going to do is actually we're going to keep those arrows up, and these are the winds at the lower parts of the atmosphere. Now we're going to take a look at the winds in the mid parts of the atmosphere. The mid-level jet here, the 700 millibar wind shear, or winds 3 kilometers above ground level. And you can see how the winds actually change with height. You have a lot of this veering with height to where the winds are changing directions here within Kansas and Nebraska. And so this veering in the atmosphere is favorable for supercells to potentially produce tornadoes, which is the reason why there is a risk over here. But if you guys notice over here towards Minnesota, Wisconsin, even Iowa, a lot of these winds are moving the same direction, except for maybe around the intersection of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. There is some veering within that general vicinity. So there is probably a small chance for tornadoes, probably maybe a lot smaller than the ones over in Kansas and Nebraska, but there's still a small chance for something. But it's more or less a straight line wind event. Everything is heading in the same direction, all the winds. You don't have that veering in the atmosphere, so not a huge chance for tornadoes. Now, for people who may be impacted, you know, this information is useful, but for people who are not impacted, what about you all? Well, the good news is we have the high temperatures from the National Weather Service available to you all, and so we are able to make judgments accordingly. So in the Northeast, you guys are kind of cooling down a little bit after experiencing some very hot temperatures over the past week. That will begin to subside over the span of a day. You'll see within the next, within the next batch of severe weather that we'll talk about on Tuesday. We'll give you all the high temperatures, and it'll be right back to what it's been. So don't expect this cool air to be here for too long, but it is a little bit of a cool down, and it is, I am enjoying it here in Pennsylvania because I hate hot temperatures. I don't know why, but I hate it. Probably because I've been playing ice hockey for most of my life. I've just adjusted to that cool temperatures. So I'll tell you an area that will continue to get hot as all get out temperatures. I mean, take a look at this down here in the Southeast. 90s to upper 90s in some of these areas here. Georgia and Carolinas. Definitely some beach weather here for you all. And so that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This warm air here towards the Ohio River Valley, that also will probably stay for the most part. And here in the Central Plains, you have temperatures in upwards of mid to upper 70s into even the 80s. Areas here in the Rockies, it's pretty dispersed. Higher elevations will obviously see a lot lower temperatures, probably the 50s, maybe even the 60s, but then some of these other areas you have 60s to 70s. And then once you get to the extreme northwest, you have temperatures that'll be relatively cool. It'll be the typical climate for most of you all. And then last but not least, California is just going to California. And so I think that should definitely be how that is. We'll leave California to that. Day 2 outlook here. This is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. You can see a massive 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here for this marginal. I do think this could extend further off into much of Oklahoma and even into Arkansas and Missouri. And so definitely something to consider with that. But, with what we have already, 5% chance for hail, 5% chance for wind. And so if you live within those areas, you have a 5% chance of seeing quarter-sized hail, 1-inch size hail or larger, and 58-mile-per-hour wind gusts or above within a 25-mile radius. No major chance for tornadoes. It's below 2%. And so according to this, not exactly, favorable for tornadoes, but I definitely think that these areas here, eastern Oklahoma, northwestern parts of Arkansas, southwestern parts of Missouri could see a risk for tornadoes tomorrow. Small risk, but definitely could see something. And so we'll definitely have to consider that as this moves on through. Now we'll take a look at the simulated reflectivity. As I said, look off to the top right corner. You'll see the timings and all the stuff you need for what we are talking about. And so if you want the timings, there you go. You can see here, same old as the day before. The day starts out with scattered thunderstorms here in Texas and Oklahoma, except you add Kansas and Missouri with this too, and you're about right. And so this scattered thunderstorms continue to move on through. This will be more or less the risk that I'm watching out for. Here at the early afternoon hours in Oklahoma, this is potentially where you could see your tornado risk. Not a super high tornado risk, but a risk for tornadoes is possible here. You also have some storms that will most likely form off across the Central Plains. You also have some storms here near the Great Lakes that will be heading off into Ontario. And so definitely something to watch out for if you live up in Canada. But for the most part, areas here in the Central Plains will start to kick off. And that'll begin to form some spotty hail threat, maybe even some damaging wind threat as that moves on through. Even Kansas City could join the fray as well, but places near Fort Smith all the way down to Texarkana, even Houston could get some a chance for severe weather as this moves on through. And the line behind the original scattered storms, this general low pressure here, or the surface low pressure. The line behind this will then begin to start to become a lot more widespread. But just because it's widespread does not mean it's going to be particularly significant. And so as quickly as these storms form, they will begin to start to die out as it heads past midnight for you all. 2 points. Not bad. Yellows are 60s and above. And you have a lot of yellows, even oranges. So you have a lot of moisture here for the most part. I mean, it extends all the way up into Canada. My goodness. You can take a look here near Ontario. It's a lot of pretty high dew points here. So definitely got something, near Manitoba, near Ontario. Could potentially see some severe weather yourselves. Maybe that's foreshadowing. But anyways, high dew points here for the most part in the plains. Definitely got something here on that spectrum. Your Cape, convective available potential energy. As I said, warm air rising and cold air sinking. So the displacement between the two tells us how much energy there is. And so 2,000 joules per kilogram or above is typically what you can get for strong severe storms. You do have that in these yellows here. We even have some reds and purples here in Texas. But there aren't any thunderstorms that form within this environment. So if there is, then you could potentially see some large hail. But as of right now, the models aren't really picking up on that threat. And so as of right now, it seems to be relatively tame if you live in Texas. But this energy could move further up north and could spell trouble for areas in the Central Plains and potentially our severe weather outbreak that could be on Wednesday. But the threat for severe weather still exists here within some of these areas that have enough energy, and the threat for spotty hail, damaging wind gusts, even the threat for tornadoes here in eastern Oklahoma, southwestern parts of Missouri, and western parts of Arkansas is possible. Now, speaking of tornadoes and stuff like that and winds, we have our wind shear here, our 850 millibar winds, or our 1 kilometer above ground level winds here. We have our southerlies here in Arkansas. This was taken at the late afternoon. And we have our southwesternlies here in Oklahoma. So this counterclockwise spin here for the most part. That's where our surface low is, our very small surface low that's moving on through. But we also have some pretty tame wind shear here. Not really an intense low-level jet across areas that are expecting severe weather. And so not exactly a huge threat for you all as this continues to move on through. Might be a larger threat for wind here in the Mississippi River Valley, but that is to be determined as we get closer and closer to that. Now, if we draw our wind patterns here, our veering on our low-level jet, let's take a look at our upper-level wind shear, well, actually, our mid-level wind shear here, and this will be able to determine if there is veering in the atmosphere, and indeed there is. Look at this. We have southwesterlies here that are moving right over the southerlies, and so right within that low-level jet, right over that low-level jet, right over that surface low pressure, you guys could definitely see the chance for some tornadoes right within that general area. So we are going to want to watch out for that, and I will update you guys tomorrow morning as to what the threat for severe weather could be within that general area. Now, if we head on to our high temperatures here for people who aren't exactly going to be impacted by this, you can see it's practically the same old, same old. The Ohio River Valley actually gets warmer, and the Northeast gets warmer. So it's more or less something to where temperatures really don't go away. It actually comes back, and it hits harder than the day before. So our nice little cool down will not last too far, not last all that long. Plains also gets warmer. Temperatures are now in the upper 70s into 80s compared to the day before. Now the not the Midwest, the Northwest here does get a bit cooler. So some cooler temperatures for you all is forecasted by the National Weather Service. California is going to California, and the desert just continues to be a desert. And so I don't know what more you want me to say about that. Now here's Wednesday's outlook. This is Wednesday, May 26th, and massive marginal risk here for the Northeast. This definitely is a giant expansive risk here. I actually think that it could potentially be upgraded to a slight risk for extreme northern portions of it, to upstate New York and even into the upper New England. And if there was a risk for severe weather here in Canada, in places of Ontario and Quebec, especially around areas near Ottawa, heading up into Montreal and even Quebec, you guys could potentially see, a 2 out of 5 in the severe weather scale within your general area. Now, I'm kind of conflicted as to whether or not how I should live stream, because I know this is going to be a live streamable event, but I'm debating on whether or not I should storm chase the Northeast, because there is the threat for tornadoes here, or I should live stream, radar analysis for the Northeast and Canada leading up to the event happening in the plains, because this is a live streamable event as well. And so should I just live stream this, live stream storm chasing and just call it a day, or should I live stream the radar analysis for Canada and the Northeast and then live stream the analysis here for the plains? I'll leave that up to you guys in the comments down below. But a 1 out of 5 in the severe weather scale is possible here within these areas in the dark green. You also have a 2 out of 5 in the severe weather scale here in this yellow. This will most likely be upgraded to a 3 out of 5. So you could potentially see an orange within some of these areas. Maybe even a red, a 4 out of 5. We'll have to see. We're 3 days out away from this. And so we're just trying to get more confidence in this event to officially say that the risk will be as bad as it is. And, it's more or less trying to not be the boy who cried wolf. Now, we are taking a look at the probabilities of this event. This doesn't have hail, doesn't have tornadoes, doesn't have wind probabilities for day 3, but there is a significant risk for severe weather here across this area of this black circle with dotted lines. This could indicate that there is a significant risk for severe weather, whether it's wind, hail, or tornadoes. It most likely will be hail. So we're definitely going to have to watch out for that as this continues to move on through. Now, if we take a look at the timings here, this is the NAM model that we're going to be looking at. So a low resolution model for the most part, NAM 12K, mainly because the HRRR or the NAM 3 kilometer does not go out this far. But this still is something that we can use to get a general idea as to what all could be happening. So if we take a look here, this is 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and things seem to be pretty quiet across the board. I mean, you have scattered thunderstorms that are here in the Ohio River Valley. We'll talk about that in a bit, but for the most part, Central Plains seems to be pretty quiet until you start to get into the afternoon, late afternoon into the evening hours. That's where thunderstorms begin to start to form. Actually, just across the board, more or less here. The big risk for severe weather will start to consolidate, and that's where we could potentially see some extraordinarily large hail, even the chance for some tornadoes within this general vicinity, maybe even some strong gusty winds. All threats are possible. All threats could be significant, and so we really need to watch out for this as this continues to unfold, even into the overnight hours past midnight. This could potentially pose a threat for places near Omaha. You guys could potentially be seeing some stuff like that heading into the early morning hours. Dew points, very high in Kansas. Very high in Kansas. You even have some dew points that are in the 60s here in Nebraska. Even along this dry line setup here in Kansas down into Texas, you even have some high dew points here. So some extraordinarily large hail is possible across the areas here near Garden City down towards Amarillo, and so we definitely want to watch out for that as well. But out in front of us, some very high dew points here, and upwards of 75 degrees is possible here in Oklahoma into Kansas, so that is favorable for some severe weather. And even these dew points will translate into the next day, Thursday, which we won't get into too much within this video, but we will talk about that tomorrow as things continue to unfold. But Tuesday, we definitely have a lot of activity possible. Well, not Tuesday. Wednesday, we have a lot of activity possible here as this continues to unfold in front of us. Now, here's where things get pretty interesting, because I'm sure most of you who have watched the video already, I've explained what CAPE does. So, convective available potential energy tells us the amount of energy for thunderstorms to either form or sustain. You want 2,000 joules per kilogram at minimum to form strong, severe storms. 2,000 joules per kilogram is in the yellow, guys. And we have reds, purples, and whites, even blacks in some spots. That is a lot of CAPE. As a matter of fact, the maximum amount, according to this model run here, sees 5,379 joules per kilogram CAPE. That is well over 2 times the amount of CAPE that you normally need for significant severe weather. So some large hail is expected within this general vicinity. Very large hail. And as I said, a potential severe weather outbreak, on its own, even if you forgot about the Northeast, and how widespread that is, this right here on its own could be a severe weather outbreak on its own level. So something to definitely consider. You have a lot of energy here in Nebraska. You have a lot of energy here in Kansas. You have a lot of energy here in Oklahoma. And how this translates is something that we are going to really want to watch out for. As I said, I'm going to continue to make more and more videos on this as this gets closer and closer. We'll have more information on what all this could look like for you all as we get closer towards Wednesday. But we have a lot of energy here, and so this is something to really watch out for. Now, here is the low-level jet. Here's our low-level jet winds. 850 millibar wind shear, or 1 kilometer winds above ground level. And our low-level jet is just cranking at this point. We have a big-time low-pressure system that's moving on through, and some very strong low-level winds here, and upwards of almost 60 knots, which is actually about 70 miles per hour. So some very strong winds that are surging on into these storms, especially into the overnight hours. It's supposed to get stronger as this heads into the overnight hours. We're actually looking at 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time here, according to this this frame. But some very strong low-level winds as this continues to move on through. And that is definitely going to translate to a lot of surface-based rotations. Definitely the chance for tornadoes is possible. And as this continues to move on through, we'll have to watch out for it. We also have some decent wind shear at the upper levels. We have our 500 millibar wind shear. This is the first time we're showcasing that. 6 kilometer at ground level, above ground level winds here. And we have winds moving from almost due west. And so with that overlapping characteristics of winds coming from the south at 850 millibars and our winds from the west at 500 millibars, we do have that veering in the atmosphere, which is conducive for tornadoes. And so we are definitely going to have to watch out for this, and as this continues to unfold. And we might even see, this is a bit too early to call this, but we might even see some we might even see some veering mesocyclones if they do form. They probably could veer off and be a bit more unpredictable rather than mesocyclones that move rather straight, just based off of the wind profiles. But we'll have to see soundings. We'll be showing. My brain is melting. I'll tell you why towards the end of the video, but some winds that are some pretty strong here, some pretty nice veering here. We'll have to talk about soundings tomorrow. I don't have any for this video today because I just wanted to get a general idea out to you all as to what all could be happening, and we are too far away to pull soundings specifically for the event, and so we're just going to have to continue to watch out for this as this continues to move on through. Now, let's talk about the Northeast here and the provinces of Ontario and Quebec. And I'm actually serious when I say that out of all the areas, I think Canada most likely will see the worst severe weather from the Northeast, especially areas near Quebec. Even the city of Quebec, more or less, is around the main risk for some severe weather. So if you know any people who live in Canada up near Montreal, Ottawa, and even Quebec, the city of Quebec, I would kind of nudge them on the shoulder and say, hey, On Wednesday, we probably will be seeing some severe weather, or even show them this video. That would be greatly appreciated. Just letting them know that this is definitely possible for their general vicinity. But timings are up here, the top right-hand corner, so if you want to follow along, feel free to do so. And these lines of storms will be moving on through here. You can see this giant band of storms that'll move on through, and then you have this massive band behind that that'll start to move off and basically just move along the border of the United States and Canada all the way throughout. And this is definitely something to watch out for as you head into the late afternoon, into the early evening hours. And this should be out of your hair as this heads into the overnight hours for Canada. Areas near Maine all the way down into the United States, it'll still linger, and it even impact the NYC area, even into New England. So definitely something to watch out for, but not too intense for you all. Dew points are very moist across the board. I would have to argue that the dew points are a lot more widespread than the events in the Central Plains, but not as high as the areas in the Central Plains. I mean, you could see across the board, everything is practically yellow. Everything is practically yellow. And we're covering the span of the Mid-Atlantic here from the DC metro area all the way up into areas of Canada. And so this is, pretty high dew points here, especially for the Northeast. Maximum dew points are actually in upwards of 73. That'll be here in the Mid-Atlantic. And so that'll be the target area if I were to chase. I'm kind of conflicted as to whether or not I should chase or not. Or should I just cover it as live analysis I mentioned before. But dew points here towards Ottawa, heading up into Quebec, upper 60s. That is good enough for severe weather. That is actually pretty good for severe weather. And so definitely all the more reason to watch out for that. Convective available potential energy. This is your energy in the atmosphere. If you have 2,000 joules per kilogram or above, or around 2,000 joules per kilogram, you can start to consider some strong, severe storms. You have 2,000 joules per kilogram up here in Canada. You even have 3,000 joules per kilogram down here into the Mid-Atlantic. So definitely favorable for some severe weather. The chance for tornadoes is possible specifically up here in Ontario and in Quebec. And the threat for more or less a damaging wind threat is possible here across portions of the United States, especially the eastern portions of the United States. So we're going to definitely have to watch out for that as this continues to move on through. Now, the wind shear it's pretty strong. It is very strong up here in Canada. I mean, we're looking at the 1 kilometer above ground level winds here, 850 millibar winds, and we have wind shear in upwards of 50 knots. 50 knots, 55 miles per hour. Well, actually, it's like 58 miles per hour. That's pretty strong for a low-level jet here. Not as strong as the Central Plains, obviously, but it's still pretty strong for the Northeast. And so we have some very consistent wind shear that is coming from the south and west. And so definitely something to monitor with that. But then here's the thing about it. We're going to take a look at our 700 millibar wind shear, or our 3 kilometer above ground level winds, and it's stronger than it's stronger than, well, not exactly stronger than the plains, but it's still pretty strong more or less. And you have some decent veering here. You can see how the winds are now moving more from the west. And so this tells me more or less that the chance for tornadic weather is possible, even with some of these areas here in upstate New York and even further down south towards the mid-Atlantic. So I would not be surprised if a risk for tornadoes is possible within this general vicinity. But some very strong wind shear at 700 millibars and upwards of 60 knots is possible, 70 miles per hour. Definitely some strong wind shear, to say the least. Now, we do have a 15% chance for severe weather. That it is on Thursday. We won't be going too much into that this video. Actually, this will be the only thing that you'll see from it. But if you do live here in places of eastern or southeastern parts of Kansas, central to southwestern parts of Missouri, down into central portions of Oklahoma, you guys could potentially see a continuation of the severe weather outbreak into your all's general vicinity. And I definitely advise you all to stay weather aware if you are not already. All right, last thing here is our channel members. First things first, to all these people here on your screen that you see, I can't thank them enough. They are sponsors, basically, of the channel. and they get special perks and stuff like that. And so if you want to become a channel member, feel free to do so. Link is in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on notifications to stay up to date with all the content that I produce. Share this with friends and family and on social media like Facebook and Twitter. That would also be greatly appreciated. Follow me on all social medias. Join my Discord server. Link is in the description down below if you haven't already. And that'll be it for me. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate. I will catch you in the next video. So peace out, everyone.